Ross,
Tom,
welcome to the Boardroom.
thank you for having me.
No, not at all. And it's a room you know pretty well, obviously. Yep. We've spent the past 6 months in here, regularly, very, very late at night. And you've had a bit of a manic 3 years.
Yeah, it's been a whirlwind.
Been busy.
Yes.
Been really, really busy. But before we get to that, I just wanted to kind of throw it back more than anything. For me and also for our viewers, other than being genuinely one of the best estate agents I've ever met, how did you get into the business? You started a little bit later than most, is that right?
Yeah, I was 25 when I started, and a real difference in career. So, yeah, going back, I left school 16, didn't really know too much as to what I wanted to do, and I knew that I wanted to go into a career straight away as opposed to going down further education. My sister went through university, came out of university just as I was finishing school, and was kind of hit with people saying there's no experience, there's no experience, there's no experience. Yep, you've got your qualifications, but where's your experience? I kind of saw that right at the time, and I thought, I don't really want to do that, so why don't I try and get experience of something?
Straight into it.
I had no idea of what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I went to work for BT. Got an apprenticeship with them, which I had no real experience in engineering and telecoms. It seemed quite cool, but it was a bit geeky.
Great pension. I wish you stayed with that.
That's what my dad said.
Yeah.
That's why I went. Went for my first ever job interview. Went there, got the job, and then had the decision as to, right, do I go down a sixth form route, college, or do I do this? And yeah, I went to do it.
So this is what, 16, 17?
This is at 16, yeah.
Oh, wow.
So straight out of leaving school. I'm quite late in the year, so I'm in August, so I'm a baby of the year.
Yeah.
So there was no Saturday job, there was nothing before, it was straight into work life.
Yeah, full on.
And yeah, 6 weeks in, I hated it. I had no idea of what I was doing.
Big company as well.
Big company. The training was phenomenal, the support was great. Don't judge me if anyone's listening, but I just found myself in the same routine day in, day out. Tea break was the same, lunch break was the same, it was the same conversation with the same 60-year-old men.
Yeah.
And I just thought, I can't do this for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And there was that period where I thought to myself, what do I do next? And again, I still had no clue. Just having a bit of a laugh and joke with my friends. I just said, what about hairdressing? Sociable, nice looking women.
Absolutely. And such a contrast.
Yeah.
BT
And I was
engineering.
going to say that creativity is still there as well. So yeah, I made the decision, told my friends, like, you're crazy, what are you going to do? So I said, can you come and help me? So my friend Mark, he came with me, printed off my CVs, went round Horsham, handed my CV into every single hairdresser that was in the town. And then the last one was Tony and Guy. And Mark said, why don't you go into here? And I knew the name, I didn't know much about hairdressing, but knew the name, and I thought, they're not going to want someone that doesn't know what he's doing. He said, you've come here for a reason, why don't you just hand your CV in? So
nothing lost, nothing gained.
Yeah, so I did it, and just right place, right time. Somebody had left that day. CV landed on the manager's desk, Rachel. Usually, from when I got the job later on, I saw that they typically then just kind of put them to one side and forget about them. But it was just right place, right time. Got the interview, and then went from there. So yeah, big change. And then for the next, what was that, 7, 8 years?
It's a decent amount of time, wasn't it?
Yeah, committed to that trade. Learnt a skill set. Go into too much detail, but Tony and Guy, they ask you to go down different routes, whether that be cutting and styling or colour. I was more attracted to the colour, believe it or not, being colourblind.
Still the same. We'll come on to that.
But still did okay. Worked through their MVQ qualification, then went to work with a competitor at Rush. Really liked that at the time they were opening more and more salons. And this is what got me then into agency, was due to open a franchise, and the gentleman that I was doing it with, out of nowhere, just said, I don't want to do it. so much with you anymore, and I don't want to do it. And that made me think to myself, well,
do I want to do it?
Yeah, what am I doing? Yeah. So, I enjoyed the job, but if I wasn't going to own my own, I had higher ambitions and earning potential for what I was doing. And then I was at that situation again. I was like, what do I do? And I'm now 24, 25. I've got no qualifications other than the hairdressing. I don't want to go back to college and uni and do that side of things. So where can I start a career with no qualifications that seems quite fun? I'll be an estate agent.
Yeah.
That was how I how I got into it. I did the same thing as what I did last time. I told Mark, this is what I want to do, and here, go and get your CVs. But this time it was different because Indeed and the websites are there, and I actually think that's part of the problem now, is that there's no kind of face-to-face application. It's very much, I'll read a CV, and if it meets the CV, then great, and if it doesn't,
screen, isn't it?
and if it doesn't, then it's going away. And okay, maybe my CV wasn't great, I don't know, but I didn't get any job interviews anywhere. I didn't get any callbacks. I was like, how can I not do this? Like, it seems like one of the easiest things to get into. Like, why can't I even have a conversation with somebody? So I said to Mark, I was like, look, you've got in your business, he worked for a sales company that sold catering equipment, so business to business as opposed to business to consumer. So says, look, could I come and work with you for 3 months and use that for my CV? And he's like, yeah, that's fine, just work hard for the 3 months.
Sounds like he's sorted you out a few times, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's helped me. He's my best man at my wedding.
Oh, there you go,
so,
thank goodness for that.
I'm paying it back.
Exactly.
So he helped me from that side, knowing what I was going to do. And then 3 months in, got the experience, started any applications with the estate agents again, straight away. A gentleman called Martin Combs, he was area manager for Countrywide, come and have a chat, and it went from there. And I'll be really grateful, or forever grateful to him, because he gave me the opportunity and the support. I was so desperate to get into the industry that I started my job in Purley.
Wow.
The only time I'd ever been to Purley in my life was to IKEA. I knew nothing other than...
And where were you living at the time?
I was in Crawley at the time.
So it's a decent trek up there as well.
Yeah. I had to do it because this is what I've been saying that I wanted to do. I went to Purley, was there for about 6 weeks, and the market just hit off at right time, right place, right time. And it went from there, and I really enjoyed it. The people that I worked with, nice team, good support for a trainee that didn't really know what he was doing. And then I got a call. It was at my 3-month review, and it was from a recruitment agent that I'd always been trying to get hold of prior to starting the job. And they said, we've got somewhere in Horsham. And I was like, oh no, it's fine. I've just taken my job. And I was like, no. And then they were like, but no, it's in Horsham. And I was like, yeah, it's in Horsham. It's where I've been working. It's where I want to be living. It's where I am. So I made it quite clear, like, I don't want to jump from job to job. And if I move, I want to move for the right place. And where I was in Purley, it was okay. It was like your kind of, looking back, your average agent. And then I got a job interview with a kind of a corporate independent, if that makes any sense. There's all different styles of agents.
Of course.
These are an independent agent, but they run it very militant. And I went into one of their flagship offices, which was in Horsham. It was a Tuesday morning, 9 o'clock, the interview, and the sales team were on the phone straight away. The phones are ringing. It was so buzzy compared to where I'd been. And I was just like, I need to be here. And then I met with Carl, had a really, really, really long interview with Carl. And he then gave me the job, joined from Purley and around the houses slightly, but Martin used to work with Carl years ago, and he said, if you're going to go to somewhere, you go and work with Carl. So that gave me a bit of reassurance as well. And then I was with Carl for 3 years. I learned everything under him. He's still where he is now. I'm never getting his job. I needed to develop. That then snowballed. Took the next role in your corporate agency where you began to do the valuing, cut my teeth from that side. realised that corporate life isn't necessarily the route of agency that I want to go down. I want to be able to have a bit of personality. I don't want to be a robot. I want to give the right advice by my clients, not because the target says so.
Yeah,
that's
of course.
then
It's a huge factor.
Where we met at Move Revolution, which
was
is
that coming on
7 years ago.
7, 8 years ago, at least.
Yeah.
At least now.
Yeah.
So just to pause on that for a moment, because I think you've had quite a journey.
Yeah.
Quite a journey, and obviously from a brief time at engineering to hairdressing to agency. I think a lot of people probably wouldn't be able to make the connection there, but I think actually, at least I hope I kind of can, and I can now see or build a picture of how that development has come to where you are today. Because obviously the engineering side is people based. You're going out to see usually probably people that aren't that happy, I assume, because there's a reason that BT are normally there, right?
Yeah,
There's a problem.
It's usually a fault. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's that kind of overcoming people that are perhaps not coming to you for a really happy service, and not buying from you, so to speak. You're a problem solver in that scenario. And then obviously I picked up from, I'm going to say 7 odd years, you say, doing the hairdressing. And of course that's an extremely sociable job, I assume, as well. But you have to be able to multitask whilst you're doing it. So actually, interestingly, I think a lot of those skills that you probably didn't even know you were developing from those previous jobs, quite a natural lead into agency. Am I right? Is that kind of helped you develop?
Yeah, there's a lot of transferable skills, more from the hairdressing than there is anything.
Yeah.
And it sounds, when you strip it down, the job roles are very, very, very similar. Someone's coming to you because they want to, if you think moving house is one of the biggest factors that you can do in your life.
Huge.
If you're upsizing, it's aspirational, but there are also issues where it could be for kind of negative reasons as well, so you need to give that support. I think from a hair basis, although I haven't got much left, your hair is everything, and that can make you feel so much better when your hair feels good, you feel good. So we are then giving people advice as to what we can do. So some people say, I want to do this and this. Well, actually it might not suit their colour palette, right? It might make them not look as good as what they could want, or it's just giving people advice as to if they've got issues with their hair, then actually how we're going to fix them over a time and journey, whether that be from colour, conditioner products, whatever it might be. There's that cross-selling element, but more from a consultancy point of view, there's a lot of transferable skills now in the job where we meet people's criteria for what they're looking to buy, but more so when I meet homeowners looking to sell, or how can we put that plan together to help you move and make you feel really good at the end of it. And if it's in a negative situation, let's kind of take you out of that, and that will be the feel good factor at the end of it as well. So a lot to transfer over.
Loads of transferable skills, and I don't know about you, but with my barber, he's almost like my therapist as well. And I think you touched on something really important there, which is that like people might come to you for their hair, and actually it's because someone else has messed it up, for example. Or they're telling you life story, and I'm getting divorced, or whatever it might be, and you end up kind of having to almost navigate some probably quite sensitive conversations, even though they're just in a chair getting their hair done. My barber knows everything about me. It's sort of that multi-layered side of things. So I assume that really helped when you came into the agency world of, it's not all sunshine and rainbows in agency or in life, and being able to kind of, like you say, not just help people, but also understand their issues, whether it be with a £2 million house, or Karen that's wanted to be blonde and she's gone brunette. They're polar opposites, but actually the communicative skills that help them in that regard, they're the same, right?
Sure.
Yeah, no, 100%. So you went to a corporate, then to sort of independent corporate, and then to a fully independent, where you met me, of course. I think it must be at least probably 8 years ago now, something like that, 7-8 years ago. And obviously that was a completely different style of agency to what you've been used to. And I can chip in here, I suppose, a little bit as well. Because from my side, it was my second job in agency. So I, like everybody else, started in corporate, cut my teeth there, incredible environment to learn the hardcore sort of sales side of the business. But just like you said, I was very much of a similar mind frame or mindset, shall I say, that whilst these sales techniques and the targets and things, they're important to get the job done, I wanted to have that personal spin as well. So we met at Move Revolution. I think within a couple of days of each other we joined. Am I right?
I think you started a week before me.
Week before.
Yeah.
So we're both really quite fresh in the game. You actually had obviously more experience in agency than I did. I came in, really fresh. I think probably 18 months to 2 years under my belt in the business. What was it about Move Revolution, I guess, that one attracted you to it, and two, what did you take from that experience? Because it maybe you could explain. It's a very different style of agency, isn't it? Not necessarily good, not necessarily bad, but you learn a lot from doing these different types of agencies. So how was that experience for you? I
loved it.
Yeah.
There was so many different parts that kind of drew me into. At the time, it was Cliff, and I met Matthew, but Cliff was the one. It's his company, but completely sold me the vision of what they were doing. As I think agencies changed a lot in the last 10 years, but I also think it's moved on a lot in the last 2 or 3 years, and I think it's going to move on even further.
Yeah.
But at the time, it just completely fitted my mindset with where agency was, that there isn't a real hierarchy. You are all specialists in what you do, and you are led to your clients on good customer service and delivering on what you say you're going to do, and the rest of it then comes into it. So yeah, it was very different. We didn't have a high street office, but actually for where they sit within the market, it works really well. We're not all working at home in our pajamas. We're in an office environment where people still come in and see us, buyers, sellers, surveyors. It worked really well. Their marketing at the time was just
edge, wasn't it?
Yeah. Unbelievable. Professional photography for every single person that was an in-house photographer. Contactable 7 days a week, 8 till 8. I mean, we often, in a nice way, we probably took it a bit too far, that there was times where I'd be out on a Saturday and a Rightmove inquiry comes in at 2 in the morning, and then we're fighting over, right, I'm on it. And it's like, how can you be on it? But it was a real, what I would say is that kind of real personable element to it while still working in a team. I really enjoyed it. And we were there in Hayward Heath together. We were there for about a year.
Yeah, slightly over, I think. Yeah, year and a half, something like that.
And then you then went on to your kind of next challenge as to which has led you on to where you are.
Yeah.
And then kind of 6 years on, we then get the band back together.
We did. No, absolutely. And I think, it's very interesting. You speak to a lot of estate agents and you're in this camp or that camp. And I find that fascinating, actually, because you're either... and the company we were at was not an online company, but you're either online or you're high street. And I think it's a really interesting conversation. And we're both so fortunate, and we owe a lot to the previous company that we worked for, because actually we were very much kind of in this grey area. And when everyone asks me, and we get it, I mean, I'm sure you do too, I get it all the time on valuations of kind of like high street versus online.
Yeah.
And I actually think there's absolutely nothing wrong with either, interestingly, as long as the people within that are right.
I think you've hit the nail on the head. I think it always comes down to the people that you deal with, not the way the agency, where it appears. It's the people that are what matter.
The people within the business. Yeah. And if you can have a blend, if you're fortunate enough, like we obviously are, to have a blend of all of it, I actually think that's the sweet spot. Because people do still like to come and see you in the office. People do like a brand, don't get me wrong, they definitely do. But on the flip side, a brand without people is genuinely nothing. And I think that's what, myself, you and Matthew, me less so, I would say quite junior at the time. But as that sort of team, I think we really proved the point to a lot of agencies in the immediate area of actually what can be done on this kind of new frontier of agency. And I think since then, you went on to kick on, which we'll come on to in a moment, and I went obviously a different path. But actually we both took a lot of those things with us, and I was developing it here, you continue to develop it where you are, and then, which we'll come on to shortly, that fusion of when we came together, very, very interesting indeed. So obviously I went off and did my thing, and then you were still in Hayward Heath at the time, is that right? And
yes.
You kind of went on a pretty steep trajectory on your side of things. So what happened whilst you were still at the company?
I was Hayward Heath for a period of time after you left. And then again, like, as as you can see from what I've done, I'm quite driven in terms of what I want to do. I don't just want to settle as to what I'm doing. There was different offices within Move Revolution, and the Crawley office, I would say that region is what it was known. I think it's now kind of Cockthorne, East Grinstead way.
Big area.
But at the time, that was the leading office, and the sales manager, I got wind that he'd handed his notice in, and straight away, I was like, that's the office I want to be in.
It's where you know as well, right?
Yeah.
Way,
It was more, one, I knew the area, and I think it's important that you know the areas that you work within.
Critical.
Yeah, because people that are coming to you want to know where Run Club is. They want to know where the shops are, the cut-throughs, the schools, all of those parts.
Your favourite? The pub.
The pub.
Where's the best pub, Ross?
The pub or the dog walk.
If you see any of Ross's videos, you'll know he knows every pub in the southeast, and whether they're good or whether they're bad. It's a great little touch, isn't it?
Sneak a pub in.
Absolutely, sneak a pub in.
And I wanted to be an area where, again, I can be confident, because I think where I suppose the issues I have with myself is when I'm not confident on something, I'm worried that I don't come across as confident. And if I'm worried, I'm always subliminally giving that away to somebody.
You're not going to be your best version.
I don't want to be like overconfident and overcocky, but I want to know what I'm saying is true, and I want to deliver on what I say I'm going to do, because there's me saying that my client journey is important, I need to make sure it's correct. So I managed to get moved over to Crawley, and that was again another step up on anything that I've been done. Paul, the director, he led it, he'd built it from the start. It was years on from where Hayward Heath, because that was still in its infancy.
Yeah, it was young,
whereas Crawley had already gone through that part and come out the other end, but was still growing, so there was still an element to take it further. And joined there, and we then had a couple of years in Crawley, then the pandemic hit. As we came back from there, the market flew off. I then got...
It's crazy, wasn't it? Crazy time.
And at the time, probably what I thought I'd always been working for. So I then became the kind of office manager of that office, which was more than what I could have asked for, and everything that I wanted.
A relatively short period of time.
In a short period of time. For Paul to kind of hand that over was massive, like really respectful. For him to allow me to do that, and Cliff and the guys to give me that opportunity. But then with management comes more of the side that you don't necessarily enjoy. So the part of the job that I enjoy is going out and helping people and sitting down and talking through that plan, all of those parts that we've said before.
Yeah.
I don't always want to be sat in an office, and I'm not a backseat manager that it's, oh, no, you go out and do it. But you naturally, as you then bring more people in,
it's more responsibility.
like, you're doing less of what you want to do. And I never ever thought that I would have still left there. But then, where are we now? 22? Early 22?
Yeah. It's been 3
which
or 4
is
years
when you 3 years to the day yesterday, you opened Stenning.
Yeah.
My little boy was born August 2022, and that's what changed everything for me.
Absolutely.
So then, then we got the band back together.
We did, and obviously that's a huge. I wanted to ask you about that actually. Obviously, it's a huge period of change in your life, all at once. To be honest, you've had a really consistent career. Really, I mean, you were at Move Revolution for what?
7 years.
No, it's a strong amount of time, and obviously, you develop so much as an agent, as a man. It's all these multifaceted ways. As we get a bit older and we get a bit more mature, and
put on a lot of weight.
Through that time, you and me both. We won't talk about that. And then, of course, the pandemic comes, and then it was chaos, and there's so much happening. And then, of course, little boy's on the way.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that. I can't speak from experience, but I can imagine, and I wanted to get an understanding. That must just completely change and shape like a new outlook. So, how was it kind of navigating being a first-time father, and kind of business as well, if you know what I mean? How did you find out? What made it easier for you? Because I think a lot of people will relate to you. Whether they're running a business, whether they're high up in a company, or even just working. A lot of people always talk about, and rightly so, obviously, the mother, etc. But how was it as a first-time father in a job that's fairly volatile? Let's be honest, agency is quite a volatile business. What did that teach you, and how did you cope with that?
It was really hard.
Yeah.
Really hard. I think when first found out we were having him, obviously overwhelmed with emotion, and then when that then sets in, you then start to have that panic. Like it's scary, like knowing that you're now responsible not just for yourself and your partner, and we're a team as it is anyway, but you've then got little man to come, that now you've got someone else that's dependent on you, and they can't do anything. Like you've got to put them first. That's scary, and then it's a change of drive. It just makes you refocus.
Yeah.
And if anything, it makes you. Yeah, I think it made me more driven. Not that I lacked drive before, but it's that extra pressure to think I can't mess this up.
Yeah. Pressure and purpose. Right?
Yeah.
Pressure and purpose.
Yeah.
And that is a huge driving factor, and certainly from, bluntly what I've seen and experienced. Obviously, I mean, we both, I'd like to think, developed since I was a specky sort of 18-year-old sort of thing. But just seeing, when that happened, and then we made contact again. I mean, we'd be talking anyway, but in terms of not just as friends, as sort of potential business, etc. That, like you say, that shift of actually, well, if I can look after a child, I can kick on even further with my career. Was that kind of an attitude shift that you found?
Yeah, definitely. And I didn't want to leaving where I was previously was probably one of the hardest decisions I've made in terms of a career move, because I was comfortable and it's performing well and it was there to grow further, but there was other parts that I wasn't comfortable with. And Bo, who's my little boy, he's an hour away in the car of an evening, and it's an hour and 20 minutes. They're sacrifices that I didn't necessarily want to make. So having the opportunity to come and work, one, closer, but for you, who I know works very close to how I work, and we have that vision together, that was a massive factor. Plus Bo as well, and being an area where I now live, it's the whole package. And being able to, one, be happy in my job and keep pushing on, and that refocus, and then him as well. So lots of pressure over the last couple of years.
But also a way to navigate a path to finding balance as well. I think that's it. And I think anyone that says there's balance in running a business is bullshitting. To be frank, there is no balance, and we're both guilty of that. However, there's no balance on your terms, which I think is that's really a game changer. It certainly has been for me, and I think it has been for you, where you've got that, that relentless passion. No one works harder than a business owner. That's always the case. But on the flip side of that, you've got that flexibility to actually, what is this all for if it's not for building something for your family or yourself or whatever it might be. And I think that's something that you've encompassed really, really well, is that kind of overriding drive and passion, and we'll come on to Stenning in a moment, but driving the business forward and your personal development and helping me and everybody else, but also being able to hopefully get that position where there's that refocus, like you said, and that balance with family, home, business, and creating. I've always said this, estate agency is a lifestyle. It's not a job. If you want a job, don't be an estate agent.
Correct.
Because it just doesn't work like that. It never has, it never will. I think it will continue to actually be even more of a lifestyle as we go more online, as you've got mobile phones and social media and all these other things. But how special is it to be on the front line of that and be able to create that lifestyle? I think that's hopefully the biggest thing that I certainly have taken away for the past 5 years nearly now of running a business, and you're coming on 2.5, 3 years. So let's move on to Stenning, because that's a really interesting one. So obviously a little bit closer to home, there's factors. You just had a little one, you'd obviously done really well in your previous job, then you're thrown in as sort of a partner. Obviously we know each other, but we haven't worked with each other for many years, and we have to navigate that dynamic and how it works. And then all of a sudden, 6 months in, you're on it, but we're not cracking the egg just yet, are we? It's a tough lead in. You joined just as the market started to kind of tipple down.
It was right after the famous Liz Truss budget.
Yeah, I mean, what a time to start. And it was Christmas, I think. I remember it was Christmas as well. And then all of a sudden I come to you and I say, Ross, I want you to be a business partner. So obviously kind of a lot going on there. That first year of Stenning, obviously I've got my opinion on it, but it'd be really interesting to hear yours. How was it for you?
Really hard.
Yeah.
Really hard. Yeah.
Bit of a fish out of water, right?
Yeah, it was more. You can make excuses for the market, which anybody can do.
It was blooming tough.
But it was a cold start office.
Mm-hmm.
I love Stenning, and Stenning's its own unique area. So you're coming into an area in a difficult market, where you're then trying to grow your brand from the start.
Yeah.
It's hard,
Yeah.
really hard, and it still is really hard. But we've come so far in the period that we've done it that it would be silly to do anything other.
No, I mean the development of the branch, under your leadership, really more than anything, has been astronomical. I think in the past, certainly the last year. The last year we've seen that it's a different way of working out there. I've been working in the city of Brighton and Hove now for a long time, and yes, I opened Stenning and got Stenning sort of kick-started, but it's a very different demographic. It's a very different type of agency over there, if that makes sense, or it does make sense. You're there, but actually, what we've seen is the way that you've really got behind the community and the way that you've got in, with the football clubs and everything else. Not for monetary gain, I'll be honest, I don't think you've probably made a penny out of if we lost money, but that community spirit over there, I would now say that you're probably a high street figure in Stenning realistically, and we've seen that the listings and the sales and the care and the dedication that you and your team have in Stenning has hugely pushed it on, hasn't it? Massively.
I think again it's coming back to the agency name on the shop front could be whatever. It's the people that are inside it, and service is everything that we lead with. And in a new area, it's give me the opportunity, and then let them see how I can work. And the reviews will now, for the team, will speak about what clients can expect when they deal with the team in Stenning. So the reviews will massively help us, but it's still a long way to go, and
of course.
It is
never-ending journey.
Yeah, it's really hard, but 18 months in felt like something had turned, and we're starting to see the recommendations, clients coming back, the advice, the calls, and I really enjoy it. It's hard, but we like it. Cheesy, but challenges are good. And it's nice to see it, and also educating people on a different way of doing it as well, and it does work.
Well, that was a nice lead-in actually, because I think we've got a really good picture now of your story so far, and we'll touch on Hove, where we are now, and the way that we've developed as a duo and a pair, and other directors, Wendy and Matt, etc. And we're really building something quite special here. But that's not really what I want to talk about. What I want to talk about is more advice for people. I think we've both been in the game over a decade now, between us, well, not between us, each, and I think a lot of what we do is actually second nature. We don't actually think about it, but when I get asked, and as I'm sure you do as well, there is so much jargon around the agency world, from agents just chuck it on Rightmove, and it sells itself, through to literally not understanding what the job role is. So my first sort of real question to you, and I think what people hopefully will take something away from, is when you're selling a house, what is it that you think that separates you from, I'm not even going to say the competition, but just separates you from everything else in agency? What have you drawn and what have you taken in the package, and what advice do you give to people when moving on? Well, what is the process to do it? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think with everyone, brutal as it sounds, it's the individual that like you as the individual have to be the one that understands them. So they instruct you, Tom, when they're instructing an agent, they're instructing Tom George because of everything that you can offer them. And likewise, I think for me, it's giving people time and listening to what they're looking to achieve. And then in my mind, creating a plan as to how is that achievable? Is it achievable? If it's not achievable, tell them why and give them a reason why, not just, let's do it to make them happy, because they're not going to be happy 8 weeks down the line when I haven't delivered, when I've told them that, it's fine, we can do it. So I think as I've maybe matured a little bit more. But I mean, always from the start, it was you treat people how you want to be treated yourself. But in my mind, kind of overanalyze what is Mr. and Mrs. Bloggs looking to achieve? Why am I with them at this moment in time? And then how can I do that? So are they looking to upsize because child's on the way and this is what they're looking to do and they need more space? Are they at the stage in their lives that they're looking to downsize, which I think probably, I mean, I'm not there yet, but when you're coming down the ladder, I think that's the hardest move. Everything that you've worked up to and lived in is here. Now all of a sudden you've got to scale that back, and that's really daunting for people. And it's trying to put an arm around them and explain that you don't have to do this tomorrow. And if you are making the decision to do it, we'll do it in your time and when you're ready, and you'll only find the right house for you. I'm not someone that's just trying to put a sale together, move on to the next one, move on to the next one. I'd rather deal with smaller numbers and better quality for people that want to go on a journey and have someone that's going to hold their hand through it, give them the right advice, pick up the phone and speak to them if something goes wrong, not shirk a call. And it's sad because so many people do it, and I will just not let that happen anywhere that I work. Whoever works with me, they pick up the phone and they own the conversations, and you earn people's respect that way.
That's so fundamentally true, and I think, you know, you have to, exactly what you said, earn people's respect, and that only comes from doing the basics incredibly well and communicating. You know, one thing that I think we both say, it's a bit of a mantra really, is when we go out to see people, I always say to them, I'm not here to win your business. You know, I'm here to give you the right advice. Because if you give someone the right advice, one, it should win their business, bluntly, but two, if it doesn't, you know, you can sleep easy at night knowing that actually you haven't gone out there to just overvalue and win a listing and you know, just kind of throw it at the wall and see if it sticks, to coin the phrase. But actually you're giving people, whether it's what they want to hear or not, it's probably what they need to hear. And it's advice on how are they going to take that next step in life. It's not about property. You know, you take the property out of it. It's actually all about the people, as cheesy as it sounds. But I think that's something that you've encaptured so well, is that understanding of people's circumstances. And then people buy into you naturally, right? Because actually when you do care and you're not just trying to get a stat on the board or get your fee as high as you could possibly get it and you know, get a quick sale for the sake of it, you know, it's, I'm going to be your property partner for the next 3 to sometimes a year, you know, 3 months to a year, you know, depending on the scenario, and get that person or people from A to B in the smoothest way possible. And it's never smooth, right? You know, it doesn't matter how much of the risk we've mitigated, what we've done, there's so many speed bumps in moving.
Even the ones that you think are smooth, all of a sudden,
curveball.
They'll catch you out.
Watch curveball. 100%. So I guess if I was looking to sell a house, you know, you deal now with a lot of high value properties. So let's just put a couple of scenarios together for people to really get an understanding of what they should look out for and what they should do. So I've got a pretty expensive premium property in Stenning or Hove, for example, and I want to get it sold, but you know, often is the case, as I see, maybe they've owned it for 30, 40 years, so haven't moved for a long time, and agencies obviously come on a hell of a lot. What would be your advice to someone when they're looking to appoint an agent? You know, take us out of it actually, you know, as just an honest conversation. Who do they want to be with to sell that home?
Fine. I think the one they want to be with is the one that they, after interviewing and do interview 3 or 4 different agents, is the one that at the end of it, they're the one that you want to speak to, and the one that you know for the next, what could be 3 months, 6 months, 18 months, that they're going to be by your side from start to finish.
Trust.
And you trust them to deliver on what they're going to say. There are so many other factors that then come into it and again, this is where I would give my own personal opinion on it, but the agent still needs to, yes, you need to be able to trust them and they need to understand your circumstances, but they still need to give you the best chance of moving home. And that's the factors that then come into it. So I would say presentation and how the agents promote the home are really important. We're not an online agency. We've got the high street offices, but the online side of it is just as important as well.
Hugely.
We want to stand out from the competition. We ensure that every home has professional photography. That's not me with a professional camera that comes around and takes photos like some of them will do, but we have specialists that come out to photo your home how it should be done. Floor plans that are accurate, lifestyle descriptions, overall square footage, social media campaigns, your buyer database, who is there to speak to, what active buyers have you got, how many people have you got looking in that price range at the moment that you could speak to excite them about my home. So then we know that the clients that we have moving with us, well actually, this is your audience that we have for you. We're not just going to wait for that phone to ring. Now we're going to try and find it. So with the people that we've got contact for, we'll make contact with them in the way they want to be contacted. And everybody's different. Some people like phone calls, some like emails, some like WhatsApps, some like social media. So that side, if we've got the details, we're going to speak to them. We're going to build up a relationship with them if it's on the phone. It's quite nice that in the team now, we've got it where our negotiators, so our other members of staff, when they speak to their buyers, the buyers aren't answering, hello, who's that? Like they'll answer, hi Becky, how are you?
Yeah,
Hi Eve, how are you? They want to take the call. It's so important.
Personal as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then when they're coming out to see the houses that we've recommended, they trust us that we've given the right recommendations for them to come and view. So that's one side of it. Promotion's another. So again, the hard part, if it's not selling, well, what are we doing about it? What's the plan?
What's
so
next? It's
not just drop your price. It's, well, actually, let's take it into consideration. In your area at this moment, the average time to sell is X. So let's not panic too much. Let's at least explore that before we change it. But there are other things behind the scenes that we can do, whether we're rotating our photos, running a new social media campaign, having a different person try and call somebody to try and speak about it differently. What can we do? So we're not just looking at the home and saying it's the house. It's actually, let's see what we're doing first. And we'll always give our clients an idea of what we're doing. I think one thing I've learned from you, the phrase that you will say is that if we don't make contact, the only thing that people can think is that we're not doing anything. And
100%.
you can be working as hard behind the scenes, but if you don't tell people what you're doing, they're not going to know. And we have to give the right advice. We have to tell people what we're doing, but we also have to own it if the market just isn't there at that point. Don't panic. We're going to find it. And when that does happen, we know that the way that we bring our homes to the market, we get more views than anybody else. We get more engagement. The sales go through. So trust the process.
100%. Yeah, and I think, you said it very well there, that essentially we can never say to someone, you will sell for this price in this time frame. And frankly, anyone that does say that is lying. Yeah, it's not possible.
We're not buying it, so we don't know truly how much somebody's going to pay for it. What I need to do is make sure that we find that buyer, and you as my client, I have to make sure that they pay the most they're prepared to pay, that works for you.
And the best buyer, and actually
Correct.
that we've got, and that's something we're both, we're constantly tweaking as well, which is so nice. So we're always evolving, etc. But, I always say to people, all we can actually do is give you all of the tools to get the best price from the best buyer. That's a given, although it's not a given in the wider agency world, but that should be a given. And then off the back of that is making sure that's communicated in the right manner.
Sure.
And I think that's what has seen Stenning grow so much, and obviously with Brighton being a fairly busy office now as well, that's obviously led us on to where we're sat right now, which we'll touch on this briefly, but 8 months ago we didn't think we'd be here, did we? So
no, definitely
so
not.
just explain how Hove came about and what what your positioning is.
And again, we'll always be really open in terms of what we do. We mentioned that Stenning took, from me being there, for me to feel comfortable, about 18 months. And it was at that kind of 17-month point that, well, I remember we worked together on a Friday. I'm sure it was a Friday evening. The staff went home and we sat in the office about an hour and a half talking it through as to kind of, right, is this the right thing to do? What are we doing with it? How do we make it grow further? We just had a slight change in staffing and we just wanted to get it right.
We're just starting to get the ship standing straight, weren't we?
And then we kind of, how do we make it better? Rather than just sitting there and waiting and letting it happen. And if it gradually dropped off, we like, I always think that we'll push each other on, but
100%.
well, yeah, it was I remember it quite clearly. We had the conversation. It was like, how do we develop it? Are we doing the right thing? And all of those parts. And then 2 weeks later, we're viewing an office in Hove.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
this is real. And we, again, I think we're both very driven. But would we have known that was there? No.
No.
Would we at the time? So yeah, I mean the story. I mean, we'll say it that the office became available. We wasn't overly fussed.
No.
Although we was quite excited.
Yeah. Yeah.
We had so much going on. The market wasn't performing very well.
It's a huge risk.
And it's like, do we open another office and spread ourselves? I mean, for
thinner.
you, 3 ways, but me, 2 ways,
Yeah.
in somewhere that I'm still trying to grow. So we came to the office and just fell in love with the office, the position, what it could be, and
For salespeople, we're very easily sold to, aren't we?
Yeah,
It was sort of, we did a fair bit in Hove anyway from Brighton, and I always thought, maybe from our background, not working in traditional high street offices, I always thought that, do we need the extra overheads and blah 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 blah, and we went back and forth. Well, interestingly, we did it very quickly because we had to, but that kind of week of decision making was so intense in terms of the conversations we were having, and we saw the office and it was okay but needed a little bit of love, but the positioning and the history as well of who was here before, and and their legacy was something that really pulled me in for sure. And then all of a sudden we were making an offer. And what was so interesting, and this is how I knew we had to have it, we initially were denied, weren't we?
Correct.
We sort of got all excited, but I was sort of playing it very cool, and you were quite like, well, if we get it, we get it, if we don't, we don't. And it was when we didn't get it that, well, frankly, we knew we had to have it, didn't we? And that's when the gear shift changed, and here we are, basically, in Hove. And finally, I mean, how have you found, you've gone from, just a sort of synopsis more than anything, you've gone from engineering to hairdressing to agency as a junior to kind of management of an office to ownership of an office to ownership of 2 offices. How are things obviously now, and how are you sort of reflecting on the fact of you're now sort of obviously spending a significant amount of the time, but you're now involved with Hove, we've got a few other business things going on, so what do you see the next 12 months looking like for you, hopefully?
So again,
tough question. I know.
It just gets harder and harder, but your challenges change. So the things that you used to find hard become easier, and then they become natural. You bring people along with you to then take those parts off you, which grows other people in the business, which is great, but takes that stress. But then you still have the pressures of now responsible for payroll between us for X many people, and it's what we need to do is deliver on a plan and make that work so everybody earns well, and we want everybody to enjoy coming to work and creating that culture that people will say. But it's a massive part, and I think where I struggled with, or what I would have struggled with previously, but having Bo definitely helps me, is that you're responsible for other people. And for me, that's the main thing, is if I'm responsible for other people, then I can't let other people down. You can always let yourself down, but you can't let others down. And I don't want people to have that, again, I come back to that thing that I said earlier, of that, almost that paranoia. If I don't know what I'm talking about, will people know it? I also don't want people to think he was a rubbish boss.
No, it's a balancing act, isn't it? And you have to develop patience, and you have to develop understanding, and it's a whole different skill set. And I think that's what's so sort of beautiful, hopefully, about what we're doing is, making sure the agency is shit hot, for want of a better phrase, but also developing that, it's a cringy word, but that culture and that maybe slightly different management to a traditional style of agency to really bring others along for the journey. And I think one thing that I found, and this is at a corporate, I won't name the agency, but that feeling of being valued is so important, because if you don't feel valued as a member of staff and you're not part of the bigger picture, it's very easy to get sort of a little bit misled about everything. And we said earlier, it's not a job, it's a lifestyle, and that really is reflective in how the teams work and certainly how we work. that actually we're not trying to just build an enormous, great big company. We're looking to manage in the right manner. So we have people, we have agents that are benefiting the communities that we live in and we work in. And I think that's how I see the next sort of 12 months going from an agency perspective, from a business perspective, and us two kind of at the helm of that. And then from a market perspective, that's probably the really important question to end on. Everyone wants to know. I mean, if people aren't talking about the weather, they're talking about property, aren't they, in the UK? So, obviously you don't have a crystal ball, but what's the 2025 outlook looking like for you in the areas that you work in?
Okay, we're 4 weeks into the year as of the time of where we are now. It feels normal, and normal's okay. So sales levels are up in both the areas. Viewing numbers are up. More importantly, valuations, so initial client meetings, they're up. So there seems to be a desire to move, which isn't dependent on the pending stamp duty deadline. Like, people are past that, and they're like, we want to move, we want more space, we want to be out of the city, or we want to be back in the city, or we want to be more country. There's a real mixture, but I think at this moment in time, there's a good demand for people that want to do it. Pricing will always be the critical factor in it, and I think if you price sensibly this year and you have the right agent on board, you will sell your home. And I think I say normal. Normal's good. It's not
consistent
up here, it's not down here. We're somewhere in the middle, and it can take 6 to 8 weeks, if not longer, to sell somewhere. That's normal. Don't worry. But having the right people on side is what's important.
No, I totally agree. I think after the past sort of 4 to 5 years of what I'd call fairly extreme turbulence in the marketplace, certainly from the 10 years prior. Obviously it's too early to tell, touch wood, but I do feel very similar to you. I think there's a consistency in the market, and there's an element of, rates are okay. We had a chat with Jamie last week about mortgages, etc., and things are ticking along, and all the kind of, dare I say it, the excuses to not move over the past few years seem to have been sort of put in the cupboard. And, we are still having to create the market, I think, definitely, and even more so why a good agent's so important, negotiation skills and being able to navigate, some still pretty tough problems and, lack of offers here and there. But on the whole, I think we calculated it for January. I think it was a record month for valuations that were carried out between the 3 offices. It was well over 100 in a 31-day period, which is extremely encouraging. And what will come from that is got to be some good activity coming into hopefully the warmer weather. It's bloody freezing at the moment, but it's a time of change. It's a time of consistency, and I think hopefully 2025 will be a strong year for people looking to move in and around Sussex, right?
Yep.
No, perfect. Well, look, Ross, thank you so much for joining me in the boardroom.
Thank you.
We better get back to work, but it's been a pleasure, and see you guys on the next one. Tom here, and thank you so much for tuning in to the latest episode of The Boardroom. If you like what you heard, do like and subscribe to be kept up to date with the latest podcast that we'll be releasing. And if you'd like to join me in The Boardroom, I'd absolutely love to hear from you, and maybe I'll see you on the next one.